You're listening to the Impact Driver Podcast, a production of the Climbing Business Journal, where we explore the ideas, people, and pressures shaping the route setting industry. I'm your host, Holly Chen. I am a route setter, journalist, and contributing writer at the CBJ. Today's episode was brought to you by Rooney, Trango, the Climbing Wall Association, Cascade Specialty, and Rock Gym Pro. Hey Zoe, where are you calling from tonight?
I'm calling from Redondo Beach, California.
Nice. I have really wanted to get you on this podcast for a long time, but before we kind of dive into the meat of things, can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself? Your climbing history, your setting history. Just kind of give us a who, what, when, where, why of Zoe.
So I'm Zoey Grinstead, she, they pronouns. I've been climbing for way too long, just like probably everybody you've had on this podcast. I currently set at Touchstone Climbing down in LA. I've been doing that for like 10 years. It just kind of I just kind of like started as belay staff, belaying birthday parties. One day moved to desk. One day started route setting. And yeah, now I'm in LA, I guess. I don't really know at all. I kind of blinked and it happened.
Kind of snowballed into where you are today. You set full time, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
Nice. Nice. And you've been with Touchstone this whole time?
I've been with Touchstone pretty much since I was a bratty little kid. I came from wilderness therapy and I was like, oh, climbing instead of like being a terrible kid. Turns out that's like a job you can have and like you can like work at a gym. That's pretty cool. Better than doing drugs, I guess. Um, but yeah, I've been with Touchstone since I was like, oh, I'm 30 now. I want to say since I was like 15 and a half.
Nice. It's a chunk of your life at Touchstone.
I would
Yeah.
say, yeah.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about kind of the any comps that you've set for that really stood out in your memory? I think we've covered gyms, Touchstone.
Oh, is this is this a trick question? Because there is one comp that really stood out, and you
Not
just
a trick
happened to be
question.
chiefing it, were you?
Oh my
Yeah, I would
goodness.
say in recent memory, Death Moth, 2026 in Denver, Colorado, at the spot, chiefed by our own Holly Chen, is a
I
top
promise this is
route setting
like
memory.
I promise this is not like an embedded question where I'm just trying to like get you to say some nice things about me.
Run
I was
perfectly.
I was more thinking about like Woman Up where we first met a couple of years ago.
But Death Moth, no. Yeah. So comps like Death Moth, I've set Women Up. That's where I met Holly, like you just said. Women Up was really cool because not only is it at like my home gym, but it was chiefed by a really good friend of mine, Claire Miller, who you had on recently. And it's just I don't know, like I remember Claire's first few days setting, and we like spent a week together at the home gym she worked at in San Jose, and it was like now she's like running comps and she's this crazy successful setter. And I don't know. I love my friends. Okay.
Setting kind of that's the good thing about setting is that a lot of times we get to work with our friends and people we care about people, we admire people, we love. It's that's the good thing about this industry. As much as, there's a lot of things to gripe about. That is a perk of being a route setter.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to share with the audience? Some people like to talk about USAC comps, USAC certs, or, if you have coaching certification. Some people guide, do yoga. What else about you, Zoe? Tell us some more.
I do have an L2, but I'm kind of at odds with USAC right now for doing the whole trans girls and not really allowing them kind of thing. Um, yeah, so I've just not used my L2, but I'm always supportive of the youth, and I'll try and like weave a comp climb into my commercial set. Beyond that, Yeah, my hobby is school. I guess it's my life now.
This episode was brought to you by Cascade Specialty. Since 1999, Cascade Specialty has installed and refurbished top-quality flooring for both rope and bouldering areas. Learn more at cascadespecialty.com. Yeah, school does take up a big chunk. Yeah, I can empathize with that. I just got out of school last August. Yeah, doing a full-time job in school is not easy, so I'm right there with you. I get you. Yeah,
Yeah.
I want to dive a little bit into the USAC stuff later, but I think we do need to give a little bit of context. So, Zoe, do you want to tell us a little bit of what Queer Crush is?
Okay, so Queer Crush is a 501c3 nonprofit. I think we started 2016 at Hollywood Boulders. Um, a member who chose not to be a part of the Queer Crush's nonprofit. She was like, "Hey, I just like want a bunch of queer friends to be like hang out at the gym." Over time, through the like organizing committee that consisted of like people like who just eventually turned into the board of directors, they filed for recognition of the 501c3, and that's kind of around the time that I jumped in as a captain at the Culver City Touchstone Gym in Cliffs of Id. But I would then say through like just a nonprofit going through a very quick growth spurt. I started helping with outdoor meetups. I started doing a few things, and eventually I landed spot as president of Queer Crush, I which was the role I was in for a majority of my term there for like 2 years. I just stepped down so I could focus on school. So I think they're doing really well.
That's nice. So is Queer Crush like a kind of a affinity space organization? Is it like a do you only do meetups? Is there what else is there with Queer Crush?
So Queer Crush, yeah, you could categorize it as like an affinity space thing. The idea for Queer Crush is to just like have hold space for the queer community in the climbing community at climbing locations, right? So this could be like a gym. This could be like the one at Torrance that I went to a couple nights ago. There's just, hey, yeah, let's just circle up, hang out. Oh, look, now there's a bunch of queers like taking up and holding space in the gym. This could also be outside. I've taken groups just on a very unofficial, just like meet up, hang out vibe at like some of our local LA climbing destinations. And we've also had bigger ones that like we've we've done like epic 3 day trips to Red Rocks where we're like sleeping in the campground and chasing shade in October.
That chasing shade in October in Red Rock doesn't sound like fun, but everything else sounds amazing. Like I like the that you use the term taking up space. I've been to a few of these like meetups before in Denver, not with Queer Crush specifically, with Cruxing and Color out here. And, there's meetups at local gyms. Sometimes it's at Denver Bouldering Club. Sometimes it's at the Spot. There's a bunch of these. And I've always really enjoyed every single meetup I've been to. And if I had a little bit more time, I would go to every single one. Yeah, I really like them. Yeah, for those who might not be super aware with the term affinity space, I kind of want to give a little bit of context here. Affinity space is essentially a space where people with a common identity hang out. Like, this doesn't have to be physical, right? Like, it can be a Facebook group for new moms. That's an affinity space. Or, a veteran support group. That's an affinity space. So that's what an affinity space is. Specifically with Cruxing and Color in Denver, that's an affinity space for black, brown, and folks of color who are climbers. They just come together, they hang out, and there's also Asian Climb Night. That's another affinity space. These specific ones are based around some racial and ethnic identity, but an affinity space really is pretty broad. It can be anyone, any identity, any common factor. Yeah. In your experience, though, was there a specific moment when you realized that these spaces are really important?
Um, so yeah, actually, I mean, I spent 10 years ago, I was like, I identified as a cis dude, white passing. Like, I was kind of the one taking up space in the climbing community. But then after transitioning and moving to LA, I realized that it's really easy to like be like isolated at the gym in a way. You have this like amazing climbing community that I've like grown up with, but it's like, am I the only trans person in here? Like, what? And then I feel like one night I went to a Queer Crush, ironically. I went to a Queer Crush meetup in like 2018, and I realized that, oh, hey, like I'm maybe a little more comfortable around these people. I can like push myself socially and physically. Like I'm trying harder at the gym, and I'm like interacting with people, which was pretty rare for me back then. So to me, it clicked that like, oh, you when you're comfortable, you can try harder, and you're probably gonna be comfortable. Or at least me personally, I'm going to be comfortable when I'm around people that are like me.
I agree. I definitely also had very similar experiences. When I first started climbing, most of my friends were men. A lot of my mentors were men too, and they were great. Nothing wrong with them. They really helped me get my foot in the door. But when I moved to Denver, I at first I didn't really have any female climbing friends. And I kept going out to climb with my male friends who again are wonderful, but don't quite share the same lived experience. Especially for me, I'm 5'2", and sometimes the mainstream beta doesn't quite work for me. And having
Yeah.
someone who has the same lived experience and body size as me to work the same boulder, that's huge. Like that, people underestimate how much psych that can bring. It's just being around people who understand you without you needing to explain that experience to them can sometimes push through these barriers that kind of exist in both culturally and in our own hearts and minds. That sounds cheesy to say, but that's kind of true in my
No, that makes
opinion.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like pretty hard to it's gonna be next to impossible for me to shit talk my friends, like all my cis white friends. But yeah, like going to the crag with a group of queer friends is different than going to the crag with like my homie Eric Falker, who's just this like amazing.
This episode was brought to you by the Climbing Wall Association. The CWA offers certifications for route setting, climbing wall instruction, and work at height to help you level up in your career. Learn more at cwapro.org. Yeah. So I want to bring this conversation back to route setting. Sometimes I get the two all weird. Route setting, tongue twister. Do affinity spaces exist in our industry? I can think of organizations like Bolt and Revolt, which is kind of affinity space in a way, and you are currently repping their hoodie. Amazing. Yeah, so, Bolt and Revolt, we'll link a website in the show notes and Instagram in the show notes. But outside of that, do you know of any other affinity groups that exist in route setting?
Um, Not really, not in the way that Bolter Revolt. Huge shout out to Ray from uh, Crag and Crux, for jump starting Bolter Revolt. But yeah, not in the way that Bolter Revolt is doing it. I was thinking about this recently. I was like, the Infinity Space and route setting is the comp that we just set together.
That
It's
is true.
it's it's me setting a finals boulder with Tim and us having like that shared identity together and just setting a fucking banger. Um, I that to me is an infinity space from outside. Like comps like Death Moth, Women Up, Iron Maiden. Those things are necessary.
Yeah. So you said that they're necessary, and I am inclined to agree that they are necessary and important. Why are they necessary? Because my question here is like, what do they offer route setters that the broader professional space does not, or fail to, or come short of?
Wow, that's a question, isn't it?
It's a bit of a loaded question. I agree.
So something, yeah. So what the like general route setting profession world, I don't know, however you phrase that, what that's lacking is going to be well, just like representation of underrepresented communities. And route centers are like pretty behind the scenes people. You just like your average gym climber doesn't know their entire route setting roster, at least at Touchstone, where there's like thousands of check-ins a day. Um, but this is a tricky question.
Okay, here
Why do you,
I can break it. I can break it
why
down a little bit.
why you like this, huh?
You
What do you
ask
make
me
me
that
think?
question a lot, and I then I start turning the question onto myself, and I ask myself, why am I like this? Okay, here's the breakdown. You mentioned that you had a great experience setting a finals boulder with Tim, and just a little bit of context here. Zoe and Tim were assigned to set a slab finals boulder for finals one for a event that just happened a month ago here in Denver. What about that experience was different to other finals boulders that you've collaborated on, to other climbs that you've collaborated on? What about Woman Up or Iron Maiden or Death Moth is different than other comps that you have been to and set for?
Okay, so now I'm comparing like a finals boulder I've set for just like a comp I cannot remember versus the finals boulder I set there. And
Okay.
there wasn't really a spoken like it's hard to say because it felt so internalized. It was like, oh, Tim and I are like connecting on like this interpersonal level versus like, oh, this person, they're just my coworker. They're just the person I'm studying with today. Whatever. Um, I don't know. I felt like I just had this connection with, I had this relationship, I had this shared identity with someone that just kind of comes back to that whole like comfortable so you can push yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was comfortable in this space. I was with people like me. I mean, Tim isn't a trans woman. I'm not a non-binary person explicitly, but we have this connection. We both share more or less the same struggles as being queer people in the route setting world. So to just not really, we don't need to have that much to talk about. We don't really need to exactly be best friends, but yeah, it's so hard to say because I was just like, I'm so comfortable around this person. And then just comparing it to like a different comp, I was like, this is an acquaintance. This is a person I work with today. I want to go home and hang out with my girlfriend.
Is it the distinction here? Is it the difference between like this is work, and then when you are comfortable, it starts verging into the territory of play a little bit more than it does work?
Yeah, I would say that's really accurate. Like, these are people like I want to now like hang out with and like get to know versus like, I'm being paid this much. This is what I'm worth.
Kind of bleak when you look at it that way, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. You know, I've met people with similar identities. Like I met a Taiwanese route setter recently, and we just clicked on a lot of different levels. It's not just that we are, you know, both women and both Taiwanese, but there's a lot of understanding of our culture that is not really widely understood here. And just being able to talk about that stuff at work, being able to occasionally slip in a line of Chinese here and there, it does kind of ease up the feeling of I am here to put my head down and put plastic on walls. Like, as much as our job is fun, it's still a job.
Yeah.
It's still a job. This episode was brought to you by Trango. For decades, Trango has made gear for every kind of climbing, including sport, trad, bouldering, alpine, ice, and mountaineering. Learn more at trango.com. I think my next question kind of leads from, we're talking about these spaces that make us comfortable, right? And in my opinion, these spaces, like Woman Up, like if it wasn't for Woman Up, I cannot come back and organize and chief Death Moth. Like, it's the skills that I gained at Woman Up that allowed me to come back here and create Death Moth for the Denver community. But outside of that, I think that affinity spaces as a whole is quite useful in terms of strengthening the overall community, not just making the community more diverse, because I think the community is diverse already. Yeah. There are people. Yeah. There are queer people, there are BIPOC folks, there are, all people from all walks of life coming together to climb. That's the beauty of climbing, right? That the community is there, but it strengthens it because it makes them more confident into moving into other spaces. What is your opinion on what affinity spaces does for the wider route setting community and for the wider climbing community?
I'm incredibly inclined to agree with your point. Yes, it does make people like, well, I guess you and me, just like more confident in our trade, but also in our hobby. Mm-hmm. Assuming you love climbing just as much as I do, which is some amount. But there was an answer to that question that I was thinking about that I forgot the second I started talking.
So that's okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm sure it'll come back to you later, but I do have kind of a story to tell here. It's actually one of my first impressions of you. So first day, Woman Up, and this is an event that is just for women, and, I don't know what the exact terminology for Woman Up is, but either way, this is Infinity Group, and I was assigned to set a boulder that was above my climbing ability, in a terrain that I wasn't super comfortable in. It's steep. And I know that Claire gave me that assignment because she trusted me to make it work and she trusted me to do my job. But I was pretty nervous. I was like, oh my God, what if I mess this up? What if she told me to set V10? What if I give her V6? Like, oh, what if I give her V does not go? Like, this is not going to look good. So I spent like an hour, like just like poring over these holds and volumes, and I slammed this boulder up, and I'm looking at it going like, oh my God, like, am I about to get fired on day one of this event? And you come up behind me and you're like looking at the boulder with me, and then you don't actually say anything. I just turn around and catch your eye, and you just smile and you nod in like a knowing way, and then you just walked away. And then I don't know what it is about that moment, but I just saw you smile, the eye contact, and then I just went, okay, it's fine, everything is fine. Like, it just, and then I went to do my next task, whatever it was, and then we came back and you helped me full run it, and we made a few tweaks, we took out some holds, we swapped out some holds, and that was it. Like, it's one of those moments that I think this affinity group really brings out. It's in each one of us, is that giving us the confidence to believe in our own work. Because I didn't believe in it until you gave me that smile and that like look and that nod. Like, I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, it's not a complete dumpster fire. It's workable. Yeah. That's my little story about Zoey. The red one?
It was a red boulder on the turtle head. One of the, like, it's just this like roof that's like 10, 15 feet off the deck, and you're just like, why would I climb that as like someone who prefers like vert and crims? Why would I ever climb that? And you just took the prettiest red holds and you threw them in the roof, and I was like, well, that's a pretty boulder. Hope it goes. I bet it goes. Whatever.
So it turns out in your head you had the same doubts as me, because I was not sure if that boulder went at all.
I was like, this probably goes. She knows what she's doing. Whatever.
This is like just actually seeing the other side of it. I think this is the first time I've told you that story.
I don't even remember. Was like, I remember looking at it with you, and then all I remember is being stressed about the finals boulder I was setting with May.
Oh, okay. So your mind wasn't even on my boulder; it was on your own boulder.
Oh, yeah, I was just like, ooh, pretty boulder, and then like, oh, she said it. Maybe I should interact with her later. Oh well,
Well,
I'm
we did
busy.
interact. Yeah. But this is kind of a long-winded way of saying that these spaces make us more comfortable because you definitely made me more comfortable that day. As much as we were all stressed about our own little tasks, but being in that kind of presence helps. I kind of want to explore another side of this topic, which is climbing is counterculture. Like this community didn't start as like a mainstream like basketball. I mean, basketball's a little counterculture too, but it's not
Golf.
like you're sure golf, tennis. There we go. Pickleball. These are a little
Pickleball.
bit yes. Sports are a little bit more in the mainstream. Climbing is not that, right? Like climbing has always come from these
Yeah.
dirtbag niche routes of, vagabond adventurers, people who kind of flit in and out of the margins of society, and we have this myth that this identity is part of who we are as climbers, and I still hold on to that to some degree, even though I live in literally suburbia. And I think route setting is very similar in that sense that I still joke about how one day I'm gonna go get a real job. And yeah, I still joke about that, even though
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
yes, even though I very much see route setting as a real job. But given these kind of background of climbing and route setting not being the most mainstream common thing for people to do, and given that you are a queer climber and a route setter inside the community and the profession, I'm wondering what your experience has been like navigating this community that really sees itself as relatively inclusive and will accept people from all walks of life while still having moments that kind of show that it is not quite the case.
I'm not gonna lie here. I freaking love all my coworkers, and I love the community that I have managed to surround myself with. I was thinking about this question. I feel very lucky. Like I just haven't had those super awkward, super tense moments that I can read about on like r/climbing girls or something like that. I I mean, I've run into like the terrible member who says like, "Why are you a guy in the girls' bathroom?" And I'm just like, "I'm just trying to pee, yo." I've run into that, and I've run into like these super uncomfortable situations that are just more or less inevitable in the states as a trans person, or even in the world. But at the gym, I'm just the popular route setter, I guess. I love all the people I surround myself with. Yeah. So in terms of climbing being like this inclusive, accepting sport, I've pretty much only experienced that. Neglecting to mention like the handful of times where it's like you're not trans isn't real at like the crag and there's like 1,000 rocks in the world. I can just go somewhere else. I don't have the energy to deal with people like that. So yeah, people like that do exist. People who negate the accept acceptiness of the climbing culture. But yeah, in my in my experience, climbing is like this super accepting, super welcoming sport where you can be who you want to be. Because in the end, we're just all a bunch of stringy humans of different sizes trying to grab rock. when you could just walk around the back.
No, I sorry, that last bit's making me laugh because I've definitely taken the hard way up a very long
Oh,
climb where
why you going up this 10 when you could just go up the stairs?
yeah, there's stairs on the back of the walk that you can drive to and then walk 5 steps up the top of the walk. And no, we go up the hard way on the other side where there's no stairs. No, I think I hear because I have a very similar outlook is that I only surround myself with people who are inclusive and welcoming and are good people. So I yeah, and same as you, I have experienced that occasional weirdness. I'd say especially during 2020, I was spending a lot of time that year in Rifle, Colorado, which in the town itself can be just slightly dicey in 2020. But yeah, slightly dicey. But in the canyon, I felt right at home. Like I was around climbers who believed in me and would cheer me on like I was trying hard and was a stranger down there. I did not know this girl and she was yelling, "Let's go!" And I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool. I will go." And that is the part of climbing that I love and that is the part of climbing that draws us all into it. But to kind of return back to the question, I think a follow-up question to that is why have something like Queer Crush or Woman Up or Death Moth? It's because there is something about this community that's not quite there yet. And I hear people say, well, climbing is, mountains are not racist. Mountain can't be racist towards you. And yes, I am not saying that the mountain is calling me a racial slur here. But I'm saying that the people walking up the trail in said mountain might. But the people in this mountain town might. And that would make me feel pretty bad about myself and my culture and my safety. So why Queer Crush?
These moments I've had of just like being uncomfortable at the crag. Yeah, like you said, Rifle. For me, it was Ten Sleep, Wyoming in 2020 when they're flying the banner of the person who's probably gonna turn me invisible, who's running for president that year. It was a spicy area, but yeah, in the canyons, I'm like, oh, these are my people. So moments of like having that spiciness, as I like to say, at the crag still do exist. But overall, like I said, it's mostly positive. I feel these moments exist, or I can live this experience because of groups like Queer Crush who make embolden the queer community, the non-male community, the whatever you want community, however you identify community within the sub hierarchy or the substructure of the climbing world. Because Queer Crush makes these people comfortable and allows them a space to express themselves in climbing, they can take that experience and only better the climbing world that we all live in, that we all climb in. So the affinity spaces are necessary in the climbing community for that exact reason, because we want everybody to, well, at least I want everybody to be comfortable with who they are, how they represent themselves in climbing. And I want them to treat people how, golden rule, treat people how you want to be treated. If I'm comfortable with who I am, I want you to be as comfortable with who you are, as long as that's not racist, transphobic, homophobic, etc.
I actually would like to add another thing is that spaces like Queer Crush, when I do deal with a spicy moment at the crag, I can pick up the phone and call you and say, Zoe, this stupid person at the crag just called me a racial slur. Or my friend over here just got, hit on for no reason and I want to vent about it. I want someone who understands the experience to hear me and say, well, that person's stupid with me. And that spaces like Queer Crush kind of builds the community so that when I do need the support, when I do deal with the spicy moment and I don't know how to handle it, I have someone to call. I have a community to call and say, hey, this is what I just dealt with. Do you have any advice? Because there's going to be a
Yeah,
first time.
drop me your pin and I'll be right there.
Zoe just sprinting across the country.
I'll beat them up. I don't care anymore.
Everyone call Zoe. I'm going to paste your number straight into the show notes. I'm kidding. This episode is brought to you by Rooney. Out of Norway, Rooney makes chalk and apparel for climbers, inspired by YouTuber Magnus Midbo. Learn more at rooney.com. Looking at a route setting community, though, which is an extension of the climbing community, do you think that we kind of deal with this similar... Because, nothing exists in a vacuum. Climbing doesn't exist in a vacuum. It exists in the context of the greater society and country that we live in. So route setting, if it's a subset of the climbing community, it's the same thing. Is route setting plagued with the same issues as the greater climbing community, or do you think we're a little bit more welcome than the rest?
I feel like we're more welcome in that we kind of look at different things. I've never been looked at as like a token trans person in a route setting in the route setting setting. I've been looked at as like a setter with like 10 plus years of experience, right? That seniority is what represents me in this context. So I would say there's not really like, I don't really think the chief cares too much about who you are. I know when I have a crew, like I don't really care who they are. Like, can they churn out quality product? And is my job going to be easier? Is this comp going to go well? Like, these are the things I'm focused on. I don't care, like, how you identify. Full disclosure, like, it doesn't really matter. Can you handle drill and plastic good? Cool.
Well, that's definitely why I hired you. I said, can Zoe handle plastic and drill good? Zoe can. Hire Zoe.
That's right. I check all the boxes, baby.
Well, I lost my train of thought there for a second.
but yeah, like, I would say we are maybe a little isolated. We do, like, that's just because that's by our own design. It's because, just like I said, route setting is for, well, it doesn't really matter who you are as long as you can do the job good. Because at the end of the day, like we just said, it is a job, and there's a strict timeline. The comp is happening 5 p.m. on Saturday. We need to be comp ready by Friday night so the RC can come in. There's just like deadlines and times to be met, and you don't really have time sometimes to think about like what's their gender.
You're saying that as you're taping the finals boulders and there's a crowd behind you staring and waiting for the finalists to come out, you're not turning around and going like, what's your gender?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I bet somebody in the room is thinking that. I mean, probably not at Death Moth, because again, they're just like, when's finals coming? I want to see finals. But yeah, I would say we are lucky to be in a bubble within our own little climbing community.
Have you ever dealt with the you said that you've never been like tokenized, and that's great. But a lot of people in these marginalized communities, whether they're marginalized gender communities or racial communities, have been tokenized in a lot of sense. Like, oh, you're only on a crew because you're a girl. Or just last week, someone said, you're an Asian girl. You're going to rise through USAC really fast. And I looked at my L2 certification and I looked at this man and I went, what?
Is anybody going to rise through USAC real fast? I don't think so.
No. I'm like, I'm still trying to achieve my 6 QEs, dude. But tokenization is a kind of a big thing to talk about. And I think my question for you is, what advice do you have for people out there who do feel like they are being tokenized, being like that one person on the college brochure that tried to say, our college is racially diverse?
My God. I mean, I really want to say, just in
You can be
my
blunt.
mind, if you can ignore it, just fucking ignore it. Like these, like whatever. You being on, in your example, like a college brochure is not gonna affect if your classes get easier or harder. Yeah, sure, maybe in a random situation, the professor may treat you differently, but the freaking Calc 2 homework is not gonna get any easier. Just focus on being the best at what you have, what your current goal is. I wasn't really too focused on being like a trans person. I don't know how to explain that, but I wasn't really too. I was focused on just like, okay, it's comp week. I'm going. I'm focused on this. I'm not freaking. I don't care if I'm the only female on the crew. I don't know. It doesn't fucking matter. Um, but yeah, what all that to say, just like ignore everybody, be the best at who you are. Yeah, everybody, people are gonna talk shit eventually, and someone's gonna say something totally out of pocket. But if you are the best at what you do and you're happy with that, and as long as you're comfortable with your progress or your situation, then fuck everybody else. Like me, like I'm happy. I have a great job. I love my friends, and I don't fucking care if I'm the only trans person in the whole world. Like I'm psyched.
I That is a really great perspective to take. And I think I will be taking that advice to heart in some of the darker days where I feel really lonely. I right now I'm about to be the only semi full time female route setter on our team again. We're gonna have a few people quit, and I when I heard the news, I just felt sad. I was like, well, I'm back to being really, really lonely here. But if I just focus on giving our customers and our athletes and our competitors the best product that I can give them, focus on getting myself strong for not just the job, but for routes for rock climbing, because I love rock climbing and I want to climb these beautiful lines that are really hard, and I would like to be strong enough to do that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I want to go, back to rifle and to ten sleep and to the red and to bishop again. And if I focus on those things, then I kind of remember that I'm not lonely here, that I have friends and I have people who love and support me. So all that is to say, I like that perspective. And I like, to some that might sound a little blunt and maybe a little hard, but if you can take that perspective, why not, right?
Yeah, especially in like it is obviously a route setting product, especially in route setting, right? The product is like I'll set a project for myself. No one really climbs ropes at the gym that I set at, so the ropes area has more or less turned into my project. But an overarching theme is like route setting. You're not really setting for yourself. You're setting for, at least in my situation, the greater commercial member base at the gym. I'm not gonna climb this 511 maybe ever again after forerunning. I might recommend it to a friend, but as long as I can put out the best product, and yeah, it's a product. It's what sells memberships most of the time. As long as I can put out the best product to the climbing community and more or less like give back to the climbing community that I grew up within, that turned me from this terrible kid who smoked weed and did drugs and played on their computer all day to this like, I don't know, person on a podcast now. As long as I can give back to that climbing community, that's what I'm focused on, and that's all that matters in the moment.
Yeah, I agree. And the 5'10s and the 5'11s that we will never touch after forerunning, that might be somebody's first of the grade.
Yeah.
That might be the first time someone does a new move for the first, like a move that we've run day in and day out, across a rose move, a small jump, whatever that we've set and run a billion times. That might be someone's first time doing it, and they might walk away going like, "Wow, I just stuck my first dyno. I just did my first rose move. I just did my first backstep. Whatever it is, drop knee." Like there's someone this is a first for a lot of people, and I think about those moments when I feel most burnt out, and I remember that I might, in a way, be helping someone else feel really good about themselves. And sometimes that's what keeps me coming back and trying to give them the best product that I can. Even on the days where I basically crack like a glow stick getting out of bed. Just every joint in my body is not functioning anymore. And I am not even 30, not to out my real age here. But this episode was brought to you by Rock Gym Pro. Since 2008, Rock Gym Pro gym management software has powered climbing facilities across the globe. Learn more at rockgympro.com. Speaking of route setting, like you said, it's a route setting podcast. Route setting is a form of creative expression. We are not just putting plastic on walls. Like, we are building for a specific member or athlete or competitor, like you said. I'm curious whether your identity ever plays into your creative process. Like, as a queer climber and route setter, does that influence how you set, or do you think you set just like a route setter?
Do I? Oh man, thinking that like I was just setting like I just set how I think people want to climb. Um, I think no. I don't think it does. I just think I set how I set because that's who I am. My identity is like a huge part of like it's really I'm really happy with it, and I'm like it's a huge part of like me. But I just set to fucking make bangers or to at least make my coworkers suffer a little because none of them can do the splits.
Actually, that brings up you're a flexible rock climber. You are a flexible person, and you are able to do a lot of moves. Sometimes you break stuff with your flexibility. I don't think that is a product of your gender identity, but it's a product of who you are. So you're just talking about these things like you lean into flexibility. You say you like vert and crimp, so you lean into these things, like because they are a part of who you are. So that's how they appear on the wall.
Yeah, I wouldn't say yeah. So all that to say, like I don't set the way I set because I'm a trans woman. I set the way I set because that's who I am. My mom was a gymnast, and I did gymnastics, and we just happen to be naturally flexible. That's just what we like. My mom climbs sometimes. She does like 5'10s, and she knows what she likes, and I know what I like. Yeah, I set for the people, but I don't really set for myself unless on a rare occasion I do. And I also sometimes set just to fuck with my coworkers because yeah, like you said, I'm flexible to an extent. I'm no Tate, but
She's referring to Tate Jennings right now.
yeah, I'm no monster calm climber, the world's most impressive forerunner. But yeah, I set the way I set because that's just who I am as a person, not who I am like as a gender non-conforming individual.
I do think I want to point this out here. You setting climbs that favor flexibility and crimp strength. I think that actually broadens the because okay, here's the background. I think the way we set dictates what kind of members show up at our gyms, especially in places like LA, places like Denver, where there is God knows how many gyms in a 30-mile radius. You don't like one gym, you just cancel your membership here, you can go to the next one.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, these places where you have a lot of options. I do think that you get to curate who comes to your gym with partly the route setting. Like there's a gym up north that only focuses on competition style boulders, and they don't start their setting at anything under V5. Their easiest stuff is V5. That gym is not going to cater to the new climber, and they don't advertise like they do. But when you set in your strength that favor flexibility and crimp strength, you are inviting a special kind of like not a special a demographic of climbers who also have those strengths to come try your climbs and succeed on them. When I set extremely scrunchy climbs because I'm 5'2", I'm inviting other smaller, shorter humans, of all gender identities to come try my climbs and succeed on them. And just for the record, for someone who is 5'2", apparently I set like someone who's 6'2", because I don't set scrunchy. So I might need to change that. But I do think that how you set can potentially open the door for more people, because if everyone who is 6'2" and sets like they are 6'2" and for the 6'2" strength, what happens to the 5-foot climber? What happens to the kid who has never climbed before and suddenly every move is their entire body length, right?
Yeah, but you're also in a way, we're in these. We just said like almost two totally different styles. I set at like my max span because I'm a lanky human. We're inviting people to try different things. I mean, Death Moth even was a really good example of like 1,000 different types of climbing styles and route setters being mushed into one
Team.
competition.
Yes.
Or like the crew I sat with today is like, I can't hold pinches like they do, and I can't do that. But yeah, we're just creating this, like, we all have our unique style, and we're all just meshing it together to create opportunities for people to just like, I'm not gonna fit in your box anytime soon, but heck, I can try and see what happens. Maybe I'll have a fun time as a member going to the gym. Maybe strong guy Billy is interested in getting their foot by their face and locking off to their chest. I don't know. But yeah.
Yeah, if you occasionally have to deal with the pinches that you're not good at, strong guy bully should occasionally put their foot by their face, right?
That's what I'm saying.
So we're on the same
But
page here.
yeah, so the gym you said, like you just mentioned, that only sets comp style. That's great for comp climbers and a very specific thing. But if a person just coming in a gym just to have more or less a well-rounded, diverse climbing experience with different types of movement, different types of fluidity, different styles, having this one person who wants to crimp into the splits and having this other person who wants to campus on a straight 90-degree roof on flat pinches, you're gonna get it all, baby. You better come prepared.
I think to me that's the magic of having an actually diverse team, is that you get both of those styles. So you get twice the membership.
Yeah, maybe even more.
Probably more if you can actually cater to every style of climbing in a gym, which I think is hard and is rare. But I'm coming up to the end of my list of questions here. But I do have kind of two closing questions for you. One of them is more serious and the other one's more fun. I'll start with the more serious one. Kind of returning
Okay.
back to the core of our topic, which is kind of affinity spaces, marginalized climbers and route setters in this space. For people out there who hear this episode and want to do things to support the marginalized setters and climbers in their space, what is something small they can do that would make a much bigger difference than they expect?
And you're saying just in the route setting space or overall climbing?
Let's do both. Let's do route setting first. If you're a route setter out there listening to this and want to do something small with a big impact.
if you are just a route setter out there and you want to do something small for the greater diversity, inclusivity of the route setting world, just want you to, how can I put this? I just want you to be aware of who you are and where you fit into a representation or underrepresented part of that community. If you're see how much space you take up, and just be aware of that, and maybe hold space for others who don't aren't able to take up as much space or as little space as you. Um, So all this to say, embolden other route setters. If you're a strong dude who's been doing this for 30 years, maybe don't treat the new girl as maybe treat her as like someone who's been doing this just as long as you have and see what that experience is like. You don't need to do it every day, but at least take a moment and hold that space for them and see what happens. And they may grow into it, they might dislike it, but you sure as hell ain't gonna know unless you try. Um, and this can be a very just subtle thing. Just like I'm not going to run and take the 513 today. I'm just gonna see what else happens. Um, Stuff like that allows people space to grow. In
I
the Oh, go
no,
for
I
it.
just you said run and take the 513, and I had to follow up, which is offer them the fiberglass, because
Oh
you would be
yeah.
surprised how long it takes for a lot of the new girl. Like how long before the new girl actually feels confident enough to go and pick up the piece of fiberglass in the setting room that you go for every single day. I've I've had fiberglass in my whole closet. When first started setting, there was fiberglass everywhere. I don't think I picked it up until like month 6 or maybe longer than that. Like it just took me a second because every time I see fiberglass, I see the big burly pretty comp climbs or the V8 that I couldn't pull at the time, and I just figured that I can't set with fiberglass until I am good or a real route setter. Just offer them the fiberglass. Offer them the 513. Like I love that advice. That's something you can do tomorrow. You could just do that tomorrow at work. Give them the fiberglass. Give them the 513.
Give them the king line. I mean, see what happens. Help 'em. Yeah, that's all it takes. Yeah, I mean, that's how I kind of started as like a terrible little route setters. An old friend of mine, Ben Blanco, is just like, yeah, take the 12 plus today. I'll help you tweak it. I don't care.
And then
Yeah.
be there with them as they tweak it to make it commercially viable. It's fine if the first one is not good. Since when have our first routes of a grade been good? Really? I
And
remember the
then,
first 12 plus I put up. It was bad.
I mean, yeah, probably.
Yeah.
And then for the overarching climbing community, yeah, you could take the same advice. You could hold space for other climbers. Just be aware of who you are. See how much space you take up. Allow others some of that space. But there's just an easy way to support the community, and that's just going to be donate. You like put your money where your mouth is, or where your heart is at least. Just donate to affinity groups. You got Queer Crush, you got Brown Girls Climb, you got Lego Tea House, you got the homies, Wall Dolls, Trans Femme Group
Oh, I
based out of
like
the
that
Bay
name.
Area. I love them. Yeah, that's going to be the easiest way. Monetary is always the easiest way, right? You don't
Support
have
the
to.
people, yeah, who are doing the work. Yeah.
You don't have to talk. You don't have to do an action. You just have to. Yeah, throw a couple dollars their way. They'll put it to use. I promise you. As someone who was in charge of a nonprofit for a bit, I promise you, we want the money.
Absolutely, I agree. Organizations like Bolt and Revolt and they hold fundraisers every now and then and share them and donate $5. Hey, I donated last year to the Bolton Revolt fundraiser, and I won an anti-grav t-shirt in the raffle. So you never know what might come your way if you just donate like $5 or $10 to one of these raffles. Like sometimes you get a cool t-shirt and a lot of chalk mailed to you. Yeah. Okay. I have one more fun question for you. What is always in your setting bag, but that you never use?
Where's my setting bag?
What is always in your setting bag, Zoey, but you never actually use?
Okay, so we got this custom Timbuktu bag from my girlfriend. It's the trans flag.
I like it.
Anybody,
Show
shout
and
out
tell
to
time.
Jen, who bought this for me for maybe Christmas or my birthday. What do I have in here that I never use?
Zoey's currently digging through her bag if you're listening and not watching on YouTube. Next time, for the next episode, I have to bring my setting bag in for a show and tell. I actually have a custom bucket that my partner made for me, and I told him that I wanted a route setting bucket that is the ugliest bucket you have ever seen. So he went out there and bought the oddest, clashiest colors and leopard print fabric. And he made a setting bag custom to how I want it, with hooks exactly where I want them, magnets exactly where I want them, an attachment that swivels so my line doesn't get tangled. But anyways, what have you dug up in your setting bag that you never use?
There's two things that I think I equally never use.
Okay, what are they?
The first is going to be lactate or lactase enzyme. I had In-N-Out today, and I should have.
No way. I also had In-N-Out today.
And then a TheraBand.
Are you not warming up, Zoey?
Because
Zoey,
I
are you
don't
not
really
warming
warm up.
Hey, we're not gonna stay young forever. We gotta warm up.
I kind of was like doing homework instead of warming up before morning. I have like ankle PT I need to do, and oops. We'll just put that back in its hidey hole.
For all setters out there who are listening who have a TheraBand in their setting bag and are not using, this is your friendly reminder to warm up.
Don't use it. Warming up is for suckers. Pull hard. You're only
Zoey!
freshest during forerunning at the start of forerunning, so do the 10 now. What?
Zoey, you're gonna get my podcast canceled.
The V0s are easy to tweak when you're out of skin and your drill battery's like half dead, okay?
You know, there is a little bit of a point there. If you start on the harder things, you kind of might give yourself an easier time. It's why we do some of the harder comp boulders in the early part of the week. But warm up or don't.
Don't warm up.
Be who you are.
Please.
That is
Please warm up.
that is the message that we're gonna leave with the audience today. All right, thank you so much for coming on the podcast tonight, Zoey. I miss sitting with you, and I'm glad I got to chat with you tonight.
You know where to find me. I'm always here for you, Holly. Just call me, drop a pin. Whoever hurt you,
Zoey's coming.
going down.
She's sprinting across the country right now.
This was fun, Holly. Thanks.
And that's it for today. Thank you for listening, sharing, and supporting another episode of the Impact Driver Podcast. A huge thank you to our guests for joining us and sharing their time and insight, as well as to our sponsors for making these conversations possible. New episodes come out monthly, and you can find past conversations wherever you listen. Be sure to check out the show notes for relevant links and subscribe to CBJ at climbingbusinessjournal.com to never miss a new episode. If you'd like to nominate someone as a future guest, suggest a topic, or reach out with questions, we'd love to hear from you. You can contact me and our producers by emailing info@climbingbusinessjournal.com or by filling out the pitch form in our show notes. Impact Driver podcast is a production of the Climbing Business Journal. I'm your host, Holly Chen. This episode was edited and produced by myself, Scott Rennick, Joe Robinson, and Megan Cheek, with theme music by Devin Dabney. Thanks again for tuning in.